Welcome, 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 and a warm welcome to everyone. You are welcome to this pre-webinar conference. We're welcoming people in. This is going to be it looks like it's going to be a really good one. I don't know whether it's the global jobs that people saw in the head in the topic, but there's been lots and lots of registrations on this. So people are still coming in. Good afternoon to everyone, or wherever you are in the world. It might be morning where you are. It's afternoon here. Uti, it's afternoon where you are too, right?
It's afternoon and there is snow.
Oh, wow. Okay, good.
Oh, yes.
In a sense, it's still afternoon where you are too, right? Okay. So I know nobody wants. Yes, I know nobody wants to miss this one. So people are still coming in. I'm just seeing the numbers just going up. We had over 400 registrations. So, and I know that lots of people are going to watch the recorded video. Quite a number of people have been asking, is there going to be a recorded video so we can catch up if we're busy? So without further ado, to those who came here on time, we're going to kick off. So first of all, I'm going to again welcome everyone, and you are very much welcome to our pre-conference webinar. If you follow Kendall Consulting, you know we have monthly webinars, and you would be used to the Stay Trendy webinars, which we host monthly. But this month is obviously peculiar in the sense that if you know us as well, we host an annual HR Bootcamp Conference. So in place of Stay Trendy, this year we have the pre-webinar conference, a topic which is giving us insight to the big theme that we have for this year, which is Unleash Advancing Human Capability for a Borderless Future. This was one of the topics that we're really keen on, but we thought, you know what, instead of just to confine this to the attendees of the conference, we want everyone to have the experience of what we've been preaching for years, which is to prepare yourself for a global future and not limit yourself. And we thought that this would be a great insight. We didn't want to be selfish. We thought everyone needs to know, how to do this if they so desire. So my name is Zadora Ipemesi. I'm the founder and director at Kendall Consulting, a human resources management consultancy that specializes in learning and development solutions. If you know us in the HR space, we've been running HR bootcamps, HR transformation projects since 2009, and we love to grow the ecosystem. So if you follow us or any of the activities, it's all about developing HR professionals and HR practices and reinventing HR in the world, in the space. With me here are two people who have enjoyed successful careers, successful global careers from two different perspectives. I thought they would make a very good combination. We have Uti, my longtime, I would say, personal person and friend. We worked together from 20 years ago at Phillips Consulting before she knows, I won't say the word, but it begins with J. So she was one of the people that left, a while ago, and has enjoyed a successful global career in the UK. She's currently, heading recruitment at UNICEF UK. So she's in a very good position, to help us and guide us with, that. So please feel free to check out her profile, connect with her on LinkedIn. Please do not vex, Uti. If you see lots of connections, all of a sudden on LinkedIn, her full name is Utonwa Akinlaja. So please check her out. You put in her handle. Feel free to follow her. And then again, we have someone you have, sometimes you meet someone more recently, but it's as if you've known them for a long time. First time I spoke to him, I think we spoke, it was like over an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You would have thought like we knew each other. Someone told me about an engaging session that he was part of, and I just love, to get in touch with people who, who are doing great things. I've looked at his career. If you look at his career profile, Innocent Obiwani, you can see his fresh face, but he looks fresh, he's young, but he's enjoyed a global career. global in terms of he's been able to, I don't know, he has some secret formula. He's worked at great companies, great multinationals. I mean, he's currently doing great things at Japan, of course, Tobacco International Company. However, if you look at his profile, you see all the wonderful, obviously he's enjoyed a successful career at a very young age. And I believe that, these two people have a lot to help us with. I'm here to facilitate the questions, moderate the session. So feel free to ask all the questions that you want to ask around securing a global position. So whether you want to go the multinational route or whether you want to emigrate, all options are good options, but you may have questions around that. So I'm going to make sure that this conversation is guided, and then we are able to get the best out of it, and you can get back to work at 1 p.m. So without further ado, and please feel free to start popping in your questions in the chats. Feel free to do that while we just kick off. So I'm going to kick off with questions. I'll start ladies first. So Obi, Innocence, please don't be annoyed there. I'm going to start ladies first. So Uti, I just want to ask you a couple of questions based on your experience. And these are questions, I'm speaking for everyone, things that, generally that people want to, they want answers to. And maybe you can, from your experience, we want practical, practical responses, you understand? So first thing, I mean, you're in the UK, you've positioned yourself, somebody else could be somewhere else. I mean, just like I want to describe it here, global does not mean you can be anywhere in the world, right? You in particular, you're in, how do we position ourselves? Because some people have been asking me, I know they have plans, they either want to emigrate or they want to stay locally. And most of the people here are in Nigeria. Some want to be local in the sense that they don't want to leave the country, but they want to position themselves globally and enjoy FX earnings. And then, of course, you have some people who want to, they want a different look, feel. They just want a different experience. So they might be planning to leave the country soon, emigrate, or they might be planning to do that in a couple of years for different reasons. So my first question is, from your perspective, and maybe from your experience, how do we position ourselves for global positions? And, you can just take your time, to give us your own perspective on this before I ask Innocent. Thank you.
At the end of the day, Adora, you've actually answered the question already. You made a point about people developing themselves and growing themselves. And the reality of positioning yourself is all about you being able to solve the big problems and demonstrate the results of those solutions. And because you're able to do that, you are valuable. And as a result, people then come to find you. Okay. I sent some slides over, and I actually want to use two of them to illustrate what I'm trying to say. So if it's possible to do that, what I'll do is I'll just set it up. I'm going to talk through 3 slides, slide 2, 3, 4, but I want to show you a view from your end, that's the person asking the question, and then the view from my end. So I am a talent expert. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, all you hear is talent. You hear a lot about it. I am a nerd and a geek with talent. And I work in the space of attracting, selecting, keeping, reskilling, upskilling, succession planning, whatever you call it, deployment, and then even exiting, that whole pipeline. So one of the things that everybody has is what do you call your own personal value? Is there any chance we can have that slide up so I can just quickly talk through it?
Have it through with you. Do you want to share it yourself so you can control it, or?
Okay. I can do that actually. Because I sent it over, I wasn't sure how would that would. Bear with.
If you can just talk through it, that's fine as well, because we didn't really, expect. We're
that's fine. I'll just talk through it. But you might have to take notes. What I will do is I'm happy for you to share it so that people can see.
No problem.
Wonderful.
Yes,
So I'm just going to pick 6 things of value that we use to place value on ourselves. And that is our qualified knowledge. That is knowledge I have that I have used and I can say it's good quality. That's what I mean by qualified knowledge. And we use that to value ourselves. Our personal network. Adora talked about how she's known me for almost 2 decades and how she met somebody and she's just known Obi-Wan for just one. Sorry, Innocent. But that's her network. And then she has over 400 odd of you with her on this call, the value of her network. That actually adds value to yourself. Another one I would want to use is your organizational experience. Now, I use the term organizational experience because we all work in different organizations. And as a HR leader, you know every organization has its own ecosystem, its own language, its own culture, its own social structure. It's an entire community unto itself. So you are going to place value on yourself based on what organization you've been in. So if your organization has only been the geography of Lagos State, your value is limited by that geography. If your organization and the level at which you operate in has been multinational, your value goes beyond the borders. And then there's the benefits of access to local markets. What I mean by that value is that, well, where are you? Where do you have entry? And then also, where do you have entry and to what level can you operate? And then there is also the value you will place, or the benefit you place on your knowledge of legal and regulatory boundaries, as well as opportunities. What's your acumen? And that's how you place value on yourself as well. And then finally, there is the mix of yourself as a person, which is your culture, your beliefs, your values, how you operate, all of those things. Now, you know you. So you've placed all this value. Now, let me tell you what I see. I don't know you. The first time I meet you might be on LinkedIn or a CV, or I may have met you at a networking session. Doesn't matter. I don't know you. When I do meet you as a recruiter or as a headhunter, as a talent expert, you are a cost to me. Okay? What kind of cost? Well, what is your entry cost? In other words, what will it cost you to get you here? What will it cost me to get you here? If I need to relocate you, now that's a cost. If I need to relocate you and I have to wait for you to get into the flow and the understanding and the rhythm of the social cultural system we're in, another cost I have to bear. Then I am betting my reputation as a headhunter on you performing to the level I have just sold to the organization I have placed you in. There's a reputational cost now. And I'm asking you to either move from where you were in your organization, or move from your community, or move from your support network, or maybe even move all of that with you. That means I have what I termed a familial cost, which would cover any number of things, but it broadly means your support system. And then most importantly, do I have to educate you on, I don't know, employment law, financial law, structure, and all those wonderful things? So I will take your value and I will look at the cost and I'll make a buying decision. And a lot of times my buying decision will be no. I will stay with what has less cost. So how do you position yourself? You do either of two things. You raise your value or you lower your cost. That is the answer. So if you want to operate in the EMEA space, that's the European, Middle East, and Asia space, my questions to you then would be, where you're going to, can you sacrifice to lower the cost of you being there? Because if you can, then you have a lesser decision to make of where you're going. It costs more for you to go to Ethiopia. Okay, it might cost you more flight-wise, but it might cost you less to re-educate yourself on their employment law, operate for a very high-level organization that has multiple players in various geographic locations. And you might move easier by going from Nigeria to Ethiopia and Ethiopia to Canada. As against you flying all the way to Canada, spending all that money relocating yourself. Then you have to start from goodness knows where and try to find the multinational organization that brings you in to then move you along. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You're asking yourself all these questions. The other thing is just raise your value. But I'm going to stop there. I think I've talked too
Okay.
much.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So I think two things at least I'm just picking up from just that start is to look at ourselves as assets. And of course, and even if we're trying to position ourselves, we're an asset. And of course, the higher the value of the asset, the more attractive that we are. And then, of course, if we look at from the eyes of the recruiter, then the recruiter is also thinking of costs. And when they think of hiring, they think, okay, what's the cost? And they're probably seeing costs that we're not seeing. So sometimes, and I just want to practicalize it, and I'm being very open here because I mean, I think I've been working in the Nigerian space for a while. Anyone who knows me knows that I didn't start my career here. I started my career in the UK. However, it's interesting. I got approached by a recruiter earlier in the year, right? And I wasn't looking, but the person saw my profile and they liked my profile and they booked like a session. They wanted to like have a chat with me. The person had a conversation with me and then they passed me on to their manager. And I'm being very open here. I had a conversation with their manager. You will not believe, this is Adora speaking. And the person was like, I thought your experience was in the UK. Like this whole Kendo experience. I was like, no, we really would want someone with UK experience. And I'm like, what? Like, I was like shocked. And it was like, yeah, that's just, we won't really work like that. My dear, so this is this is my own personal experience. So I think I get what you're saying. And it never really dawned on me until this experience that, wow, even just that social cultural, I mean, you know me, I'm in the UK like a couple of times a year. My family links are there. But my dear, they say Adora does not have UK experience again. So, hey, so I get that. So I just want us to, I'm holding on to that. So I want to speak to Innocent now, because a key point I'm hearing, Uti, is that multinational is another route. And I'll tell you, I think I want to listen to Innocent and I'll give my input there. So Innocent, maybe your thoughts on what Uti said, but how do you, maybe for some of us, we have to look, multinational as an option, because Uti says it's a shorter route, right? Or it's a cheaper route. I don't know, but tell us about your career and, how do we position ourselves globally from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I mean, I think Uti nailed it, when she picked one word, which is value,
Yeah.
right? And then you also said something else, which is asset.
Yeah.
But from my own perspective, now when I look at it from the lens of my own career, basically, I look at everything as, personal brand in totality, right? I know the big question most times when I interact with HR professionals is I ask them the question, what is your personal brand and how have you built it to be positioned, whether it's for within multinationals or it's within, cross-border opportunities. And the truth is, when you start to intentionally build your personal brand, right, it builds up and piles up your currency and the value that recruiter who has a cost would be willing, right, to actually make the decision or that buy decision to go for you. I mean, if I tell a short story, right, I started my career in consulting industry, right, and it was an indigenous company.
Yeah.
My preference was always the shorter route, like you put it, target the multinationals and see how you can grow your career globally. But how do you get into the multinationals, right? I wasn't this exceptional whiz kid, right, who would come out with a 2-1 or a first class. I came out with a second class lower. But I said, look, would that weigh me down or would that be my own disadvantage? And the answer was no. And so I intentionally started to look for consulting firms where I could build up my personal brand. And my personal brand was really about what capability I had to offer, how I deliver, and what value I can sell to any potential recruiter that wants to speak to me. And so I targeted consulting firms who had a very big scope in terms of how they support organizations. And then I moved into a French company. But guess what? It was a French company based in Paris, head office, but then had a local office in Nigeria, supporting blue chip organizations. So that for me was the first leg. Say, okay, fine, this organization recruits for multinationals. So let me start supplying or supporting multinationals with valuable talent. And so I started to interact with multinationals. But hey, again, we're talking about the global space. And for me, Nigeria was not enough to conquer that global space. And so when the opportunity to open the Ghana office, to open the Ivory Coast office came on board, I raised my hand up and said, hey, we can do it. Yes, I'm not Anglophone. I don't know how to speak French, but how can I be intentional to learn the culture, build the network? Because the network helps me reach out to the talent that I can sell to the multinationals. And voila, that was it. And so the point a multinational felt, look, we needed somebody with a West African experience. And I'm like, look, let's talk to Innocent. He already has the currency, he has the value. He's built up a personal brand because anytime we interact with him, he talks about talent in Congo, talent in Ivory Coast, talent in Ghana. And we need somebody that understands the West African market. And that was it. So I think the big word here is build your personal brand. And your personal brand speaks a lot to the value, the skills, the knowledge that you intentionally seek. Because if you look at the way the world is today globally, our HR professionals constantly asking themselves the right questions. What kind of value are businesses looking for today? And how can I identify the skill sets for those value proposition that is linked to the cost that I can start acquiring right now, either by networking, either by self-study, either by even going to school. So I think these are the pertinent questions that I think we HR professionals need to think about, right, going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And maybe even just to speak to that, I don't know whether you said, were you testing your French when you said voila, or is that? Are you... Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I love that perspective because I think it's one that, you know, people sometimes don't look at. And I'll just give an example very close to what you were saying. And it's probably going to lead us to the next question, which is education. Are these important elements or, you know, certifications? Are these important elements? So maybe I'll ask Uti, tell me, I want to go into HR and maybe you can talk about the UK. I think I can help people a bit with Canada, not because I know a few people who've emigrated there, or even Nigeria, or the US. Like, what educational requirements are, you know, what do you look out for?
Okay, so I need to position this very carefully.
This HR jobs, please don't move us somewhere else now. Let's know. What do we need?
I've been duly warned. All right.
Okay.
With the
I'm just saying.
Of human resources.
Yeah. Like, what would you?
The only qualifications that matter is, and when I say matter, I want to define it. Matter in the sense that it benefits you and gets you to have a foot in the door. Is whatever is relevant to the employment law of that geographical location.
Okay.
That you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a PhD in human resources is relative in usefulness to that geographical location. So if you have SHRM and you rock up to me in UK, I frankly don't care. I will not look at you. If you have any kind of basic entry-level knowledge in human resources, I will pick you and I will still say to you with your PhDs in human resources. Why? Because you've worked in the UK. So you must have had to encounter the employment law in practice. You've had to use it in your decision-making and your policy applications. And there is a judicial system that actually operates in the UK. It is bound under employment laws and it is we can penalize employers. So I don't want you with your textbook knowledge. I want the person who's done this. It's the same thing if you walked into the USA. Unless the company says you need to have that qualification, what they really want is have you practiced. For example, there's a lot of union activity going on with multinationals in America. HR people with union experience they're now very important. They didn't used to have a lot of them. So if I'm in England and I go to America and England has union experience, they will want to talk to me because I've been there. So I will not say to you, run off and go do a qualification. I will ask you, is that qualification relevant to the employment law and human resources there? And will you get your foot in the door? If the answer to those two questions, if one of them is no, why are you doing this qualification?
Okay. So Uti, let me ask specifically now for the UK.
Yeah.
So are you saying that if I do CIPD, I will get because CIPD is the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development for the UK,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Are you saying most HR jobs in the UK, if I had Nigerian experience and I go and pay and do the CIPD now, does that improve my chances? Or are you saying I should save my money?
I am saying if you're going to do the CIPD, start with the employment law module because that is what you don't know.
This tip. This
Start
is
there.
a money saving tip.
Number two. And I'm going to speak to your question.
Yeah.
Look for experience first. And if you have to volunteer, volunteer. Innocent didn't say something, but he said it, but I'm going to name it. He didn't tell you specifically that he sacrificed things. Sacrificed his location, sacrificed time to learn French because he must have had to, sacrificed himself to stick with a particular stream, and probably missed a heck of a lot of weddings, people's namings, all kinds of things. He didn't tell you all that. What he did, I'm not, Adora, we've been friends for how long? We've been there. We know. Okay. So that's a separate story. But my point is, you will have to give up something. And here's the brutal frankness of it. You may have to give up your job title.
Yeah, you're right.
You may have to. You may have to ask yourself, am I going to take a step down or step sideways? You may have to give up power and authority because it's not required. And this brings me to the last thing I want to say. All of this will be driven by your why. Why are we starting this? And but in summary with the UK, start with employment law. Start there.
Yeah. That's a very good one, because I mean, I know one thing I know about people in Nigeria generally, like we're quick with the certifications, like we're quick, and so if we're not doing the certifications, we're applying for a master's program, and what the whole thing, so many people take that master's route, and that's pretty expensive.
Very.
And I guess it's because it's seen as maybe a soft landing. It may be soft, but expensive landing. So I don't know, maybe it's seen as maybe an easier route to maybe emigrate there. So, what would you say about a master's degree in HR?
If you are going to invest in a master's degree, and this will apply to every organization, here is my advice. Find a university that has a great track record, and they are part of their unique selling point is that they place people in jobs. I was on a forum where a gentleman said, and because he said it, I said, by the way, I'm seconding what he said. He literally looked at people and said, if you're coming to the UK, please don't do an MBA again. If you don't know what you're going to do with it, please don't start. And if you're going to do one, please, can you limit yourself to LSE? Maybe Cambridge and Oxford. And I went, yep, preach, that he was specific to MBA. Because he said MBA means nothing to us. And he's right. But why those three universities? Because part of their unique selling point to making you spend the £60,000 is because they have to put in an internship in like a UNICEF UK. And then when you finish, they have to find a way to get you somewhere. Why? Our reputation depends on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And it's interesting that you say that. So I know that with Canada, I know experience is really big, even though they have the certification that they recognize. But I keep hearing people have told me that experience, they keep talking about having that cultural Canadian experience, there. And you see, you would never think that those things are such big deals, but I've heard people say that a lot, about Canada, like, that experience really counts. And that's why they spend a lot on you, the orientation, that orientation when you get into Canada, the big part of the immigration process is orientation so that you get used, their way of life. And I guess for the workplace, it's a very important element before you go and say something, like things that we may take for granted in Nigeria, you go and say it there, and then you end up somewhere you don't want to end up or something like that. So I want to believe that is key. However, I'm going to ask Innocent from his own perspective, what do you think about certifications and education to get into a multinational? What, like, speaking from the Nigerian perspective,
Yeah,
and they're based in Nigeria now,
yeah.
what's your experience? Does it help? Please,
To be honest, Adora,
you people, tell us whether it helps in Nigeria.
when you ask that question, and again, maybe to help Uti, so there's one more sacrifice I had to make, which was what I learned in school, which was a BSc in marketing versus what I'm doing now, right?
Okay.
And it speaks to one simple thing, which is passion.
Yeah.
Which is passion. So what was I passionate about? So I learned a particular skill in the university, which was marketing. Learned on the principles, learned on the theories. But then what was I passionate about? I was more passionate about human capacity, right? I was more passionate about how the core of the business, because, humans are still the core. Machines are machines. Humans are the core, how they engineer and transform businesses. And so that's why I wanted to do marketing. So that was a huge sacrifice. To be honest, my simple answer to that question, Adora, is no. There is no educational qualification. That's my route. There is no educational qualification. I have a background in marketing. But the truth is that what I tried to do as well was try to infuse marketing into my type of HR, which is why I spoke to personal brand, right? So marketing is all about brand building. And so I said, Innocent needs to start building his own brand, right? To be well positioned for any potential organization, whether it's a multinational or whether it's a big indigenous firm that would like to, hire his skills, right? But for me, HR is HR. I've seen great HR leaders today. I mean, in my previous organization, I used to work under a boss who used to be the head of HR for Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. He'd spent 19 years in the organization. But guess what? Out of this 19 years in the organization, he had spent only 3 years in HR. And when I spoke to him, I asked him, his name is Jorge. He's from Mexico. I said, Jorge, why did you pivot into HR? So he was an IT guru. He'd grown his career from IT, moved into marketing, and then the business felt, look, what better HR person is somebody that already understands the business, and we needed somebody who was going to bring value, right? But beyond that, it was not necessarily about his skills in IT. It was not necessarily about his skills in marketing. It was really about his leadership skills, which was very, very likened to his people management ability that positioned him in such a way that he can be considered as a HR manager. And he pivoted his career into HR, right? But he didn't study HR. He didn't go for a master's. Today, I mean, we because again, let's also bring Nigeria into context, right? We have fresh graduates, young professionals. They come out of school, there are no jobs, and so there's always that tendency to look at master's degree as a way of staying busy. But does it give you the relevance to be well positioned within an organization of choice, whether it's a multinational or indigenous firm? The answer is no. And so back to what Uti said, you need to start looking for those opportunities intentionally. Why won't you intern with an organization? Why won't you volunteer? My first career was such that I volunteered for 3 months without pay. And then when I started to get that little pay, it was not pay for pay, it was just pay to pay my transport fare to the office. But I was trying to build knowledge and skills that I could hold on to and get that next great job in another great organization, right? So for me, qualifications don't matter, but it's important that as you grow within your career space and the HR space, it's also good for you to refresh trends. And that's what these certifications help you do. And those trends, again, link back to the trends as it relates to the context of the situation or the environment you find yourself in. Like Uchi said, how vast are you with the local laws or the employment laws in the UK versus in Canada versus in the US, right? So those things help you hone those skills, but qualification doesn't matter, to be honest. It's really about those very, very clear steps you take to build your experience, but doing something that, one, you have a passion for, two, you can deliver value to the organization, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. Okay, so I see you separated education particularly, and then you spoke about certifications, not so much, but you've said it, and the crucial part it plays in honing your skills and keeping abreast of trends as well. Would you say that for multinationals in Nigeria, like if somebody here wanted to join, that certifications would be key?
I would say, yeah, to be honest, I would say
don't think about top leaders, because leadership is, like, I believe that when you're like a director level, your people skills, your leadership skills are what counts. If somebody here middle of their career or early in their career, and they wanted to get into a multinational, like, certifications.
Yeah, so look, Adora, to be honest, I'll put it this way, right?
Yeah.
Again, certifications help,
yes,
but they are not the core, okay?
Yeah.
So again, a typical recruiter in Nigeria, I'll give you a simple example, right? I was interviewing someone, I think it was last year, right, for a HR role, okay? And one crucial question I usually ask people, it's, and your spare time, what do you do for self-development, right? So this is somebody who doesn't have an experience, right? And the person goes, hey, look, I don't have the core experience that you probably are looking for right now, but I'm trying to develop, I'm trying to build it by understanding at least the theoretical principles around the application. And so all I need right now is for you to give me the practical platform to apply the theoretical principles as well. So for me, it just helps position you in the right space for potential recruiters. But it's if you look at the 100% buying decision of the core recruiter, it probably just takes up about 20% of that. 80% of that will still be about those experiences that you can actually demonstrate from a behavior, and then from past application, whether it's within an organization or even outside an organization. So this is how I see it.
Yeah. Another thing I notice is that, and perhaps, maybe it's peculiar to this part of the world, is that maybe like because of lots of applications, I mean, criteria you may not see normally, you would see them here. I think, I think sometimes even some of these extra qualifications like master's degrees and are because of lots of applications, and people are just trying to narrow them down. I also want to add just maybe a personal example, because people do ask me about masters and certifications, and I always say, if you have to choose, I would choose certifications over a master's degree, because of the outlay. And of course, I always say you're okay to do a master's if you are en route to do a PhD. But if you just are doing it to keep yourself busy, or you feel like, I don't think it's necessary unless you really want to specialize a certification. I have a friend who's in the multinational, one of the oil majors right now, and she's been there for, this will be going into 4 years. And I remember her contacting me maybe about 6-7 years ago on what next. She was, already middle on her career. And I remember her positioning for a multinational. She wanted to work at a multinational. And I know she did not have experience of multinationals. And at that time, I advised her to do the GPHR. And that was because of the content of the GPHR, because I had done it in 2011. And I know that it gave me a lot of understanding of things that I didn't even understand when I worked in a multinational, right? And I felt like it was a big knowledge gap for her, and that just even taking that exam. And I remember I saw her about 2-3 weeks ago. She had a baby, so I went to see her. And she says that she knows that the reason why she got that job was because she had a GPHR, because she said that the two people who were shortlisted for the role she currently occupies, which was business partner roles, that they both had GPHR. And she knows that if she didn't have a GPHR, she wouldn't have been shortlisted in the first place. So, I mean, what do you think about that? I don't know. What's your opinion on that? That's her story.
Yeah. Again, see, you can never get all the answers right,
Of course,
at the same time.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And you're right. Again, never forget that, Uti said something. There's always a flip the script situation. Who is hiring at that point in time, right?
Exactly.
And then what impact has such kind of certifications had on, for instance, the hiring manager? That's number one. Number two, what impact does such kind of certifications, and what is the applicability of such kind of certifications in the organization that the person is recruiting you for?
Exactly.
I tell people, if you go on my profile, Adora, you won't see GPHR, SPHR, PHR. Okay? But if you look at my career, I've really transversed the multinational, right?
No,
exactly.
I get that.
That's why I say, look, it helps in certain context. And the beautiful thing, or usually what I always advise HR professionals, even if you want to do those, and those certifications anyway have positioned themselves in such a way that for you to do them, you need to already have had the practical experience so that you're able to relate it to the context and the theory as well within those modules that you go through.
And let me point out. Okay, sorry, I thought you had finished.
But it's very valuable. I get it.
Yeah, no, but I love what you said about it's about 20%, because for some people that 20% is the tipping point, right?
Exactly.
And then another thing I must add about this particular organization I'm using as an example, it's an American firm. Hello. So it's an American multinational.
Back to the context,
Yes, I had to put it. So I'm agreeing with you, but also you need to know the country that firm, what is valuable to that country. And if you know anything about America, their certifications are quite for America, yes, not so much for Canada. And as Uti has told us, experience for the UK employment law. So let me go and save my money that I was saving for, just go and take that module, that kind of thing. So it's good to put it. And what I was just trying to bring out from the conversation is context, so that people are not just taking things and saying, oh, Innocent said, or Adora said. Still, your profile is very rich. If we look at your profile, you see how you moved, like you're learning cultures, and your attitude plays a big part, because I'm sure, like, it's not everyone who volunteers and say, hey, pick me. We worked in consultancy. Sometimes when there are projects, you see some people almost literally hiding. They don't want to be, that they don't want to be picked because they don't want to inconvenience themselves. We had people like that in consulting. It's not everyone who wants to inconvenience themselves, but looking at what Uti was saying, you have to, like, leave your family, you have to travel, and if you don't want to do these things, then multinational may not really work out for you, because if you're not open to new experiences, because it doesn't always start at the top level. Sometimes it just starts with local travel, and then and then regional travel, and then it goes more and more. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you one other question, and then we just take questions from or just a couple of questions. I'm asking the questions that I know people want to ask. So are there any some of the questions here about is how important is culture? I think we've answered it kind of. How important is cultural competence in global HR? Like, and what strategies would you recommend for an HR professional to develop cultural? So how important is culture? So I'll ask you, Uti, that cultural competence. Yes.
Very. Okay. So I landed in the United Kingdom. I grew up all 25 of my first 25 years were in Nigeria. But I had a habit. I had a habit of being conscious of how I spoke, how I delivered my words, and how I enunciated them. So I would listen. Adore, how many conversations did we have? I mean, there was one project that we spoke the best of English and it was going nowhere. And then we shut that down and we're in pidgin for 3 days straight because we had to make.
I know.
Now, that experience, I'm bringing it out to point this out. I learned very quickly that experience is that is the answer. You have to have adaptability and be willing to flip.
Yeah.
So I can sit in rooms with people and I will speak this way from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock. And then you would call me halfway through at 2 p.m. I'll be like, babe, what's up now? How you doing? Pidgin, straight, 30 minutes. And I'm walking to a meeting with some trustees and I'm speaking this way again. How do I flip? Because my message is more important than me. I have something to say to you. I have influence. I have something to change with your mindset. So if I keep speaking my language, you won't get it.
Now, I don't want to answer that one though. Unless that one is a difficult one to unpack.
Let me try. Let me say it this way. Let me say it this way. Yeah. Why are IT people, especially coders, paid what they're paid? Because they know how to speak the language. If you cannot speak the language, you will not communicate. And if you can't communicate, nobody's listening to you. So I have a language I speak. Now I work for UNICEF UK and I own my own company. When I'm in UNICEF UK, we use all kinds of words and I need to understand what that means so I can communicate it. Now I am sitting here and I'm sitting in capacity of UT who owns this company called Skills on Demand. I have my UNICEF hat on. Yes, it's true. I have to speak in a language that you all can understand. Like, for example, I said volunteer, sacrifice. Somebody said it in the chat. How am I going to do that? And my question is, why can't you do that? Why can't you walk up to a school and offer to help them with their HR systems? Why? Why can't you walk up to your local, I don't know what association you belong to, and offer to help them with their payroll systems? Why? Why can't you do that? Why are you waiting for them to come to you? Why aren't you going to them? Why aren't you solving their problem? Then say to them, could you validate me on LinkedIn? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, definitely. I mean, I think on the issue of volunteering, like maybe from your recruitment perspective, which type of organizations, what industries are easier to, or sectors are more conducive to accepting people?
Are willing to hear and will translate to global opportunities. I'm so happy you asked me that question.
Yes.
Just for everybody on the call, let me just tell you this. By 2030, the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, predicts that 52% of the population in Europe will be old. And we are talking 469 million people. Okay? Guess which sectors will be desperate to have anybody who is not Caucasian, but knows their stuff and is in human resources and is willing to move? Healthcare, education, anything IT. Because those are the three that will cater to the aging population.
Interesting.
And by healthcare, don't think hospitals. Throw that away. Park that. By healthcare, I think social care. The people that have to go into old people's homes and provide help, or then move them to specialized hospitals. So when you think, don't just think geography, think sector. Here's one I didn't name, the sector I play in with my UNICEF hat.
Charity, not for profit.
What people will call social enterprise. Next to that, education.
Yeah.
Next to that, the government.
Yes, yes, yes. So those sectors are more likely to even sponsor, even not just recruit because you're there already. Because I remember my sister, she's in HR in the UK, and there was a contract opportunity that she was working on as an HR business partner. And she says there's an HR department, well, part of their HR team that were recruiting people directly from Nigeria,
Yes.
like straight, and they were
Yes.
sponsors, as in, so they had I don't know what they call them, like the sponsors. So
Yes.
they're not even they're looking for talent that they know they are going to sponsor, like visa
Yes.
sponsorship. And there were about, I don't even know how many, like maybe she was like 5 Nigerians in the HR department, and they came straight from Nigeria. So it's interesting. People do not realize, they think it's only IT jobs, and that is education sector. It's actually a university. So education sector, they are easier. They're one of the easier entry barriers. Not-for-profit charities as well, and you can volunteer for them first, because I know that some of these charities, they are not, you will not start off as paid. So you can actually contact them via LinkedIn and volunteer for them, but then you have UK experience. Yeah, you would already have had UK or Canadian or whatever country you have.
They
You would
will
have it on
validate
your,
you.
yes, they will. And then you can now go and look for the opportunity, the paid
Exactly.
one. But that experience in that countries, like charities are always willing to take on anybody that will want to help them. I don't think a charity will be telling you, where's your experience from? I don't think they'll be as fussy, right? They'll
No.
probably be more accommodating.
No,
Yeah.
and it's not just the case for the UK, it's the case for a lot of other countries.
Yes, yes,
I've been
yes.
monitoring Germany, and I expect them to open their borders by next year. But they're going
Yeah.
to be very specific, just like Canada and Australia were, and still are, on what they want. And the reason is because they're being very, very, and I'm going to use the word carefully, but I have to use it, selfish, and rightfully so. They only want you, they need you. Remember, value, cost. So I'm going to pay a cost for you. I must need you. So those are the sectors that already have paid the price to get sponsorship visas to bring you in.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to ask Innocent one last question, and then we can look at some of the questions. I know I've been monitoring the chat, so we've been answering the questions that people are asking anyway. So the question I have for you, Innocent, is now, are there common challenges that HR professionals face when transiting into a global work environment? I know people want to work in a global work environment, but what do you think are the things holding them back? Maybe from your experiences, are there any common challenges, and how can they overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there are definitely challenges, where we're talking about the global world. So sometimes I almost phrase it to say moving from the known to the unknown, right? But then the big question is, how can you unpack the unknown such that, it's positioned in a way that excites you, and then you make that move. I mean, look, if someone wants to experience a global career, right, whether it's a global career by staying in a particular location and doing full-time 100% remote, or you actually need to move locations. I think some of the key challenges, are location differences, cultural differences, for instance. And when Uti was saying something, I think one of the things that HR professionals need to start becoming a lot more aware of is that principle of cultural intelligence, right? And today, when I talk to certain HR professionals, I ask them, how aware are you about, being a lot more culturally intelligent? There's been a lot of focus on emotional intelligence, right, for leadership. But for me, when I think of HR and how HR is really pivoting towards people and culture and being a lot more specific on not the conventional HR, but the HR that has been transformed as a result of COVID, right? Cultural intelligence starts to play a very, very big role. And it's a very simple framework. It's just 4 key pillars. And the first one basically is, how do HR professionals acquire knowledge around cultural differences? So as a HR professional, you need to acquire information and knowledge that helps you to identify, specific cultural elements wherever you want to work in the global space, right? Or in any organization. You have to know the cultures. You have to know how they are created. You need to know how they are interpreted. You need to know how those cultures are also shared, right? And then how they are being interpreted and the meanings that are made out of them, whether it's a multinational or whether it's even an indigenous organization. The second key pillar of the framework is strategic thinking, right? How do you build your strategic thinking of those cultures? Strategic thinking today has become very, very important. It's a skill set that HR professionals need to start building to actually navigate those challenges of the global space, because it becomes important how you think about or make sense of the knowledge of those cultural differences in such a way that it helps you to better perform and interact with different cultures. So whether you're in the educational sector, or whether you're in the technology sector, whether you're in the not-for-profit sector, it's important to understand how to strategically think and connect those cultures. The third one basically is your ability to contemplate your own motivation and ability to work with others. Because you're talking about global careers. How many of us, when we think about global careers, understands the cultural dynamics within our organization or within those organizations? In my experience, right, when I was in one of the multinationals and I was appointed to work on a project, I had Russians, I had people from Turkey, people from Ukraine, people from the Middle East, and people from within Africa, which is a lot of cultures. And I had to work with these individuals. And the first thing that hits me is these are different cultures. The way the Russians react is different from the way the Africans react. It's different from the way the Ukrainians react, right? So while I'm chasing the Africans, so they're quick to react, the Russians would take time. And then 2 hours to the deadline, they would give you a near perfect job. And so for me, the cultural understanding of, okay, how do I motivate myself to be able to work with them was built on the premise that I understood how they are driven by their own culture as well. And the last one basically is, adapt and perform, basically. Because there are different cultures that are in interplay here, you need to be very adaptable. So adaptability for HR professionals today is a huge skill set that I think is becoming a lot more prominent and very, very important. We talk about agility every day. How can HRs become more agile in their mindset? So when you think about adaptability and performing, it's to the extent at which your adaptability or you're able to actually look at interplay of behaviors within those cultures in the surroundings that you find yourself. You understand? Are you aware of others and how others see you? And how do you come across to them? How do you interpret what they say? How do you respond? Today, culturally intelligent leaders, they're like chameleons. I think HR, we need to start being like chameleons. We're able to adapt quickly. And for me, this is how you can overcome those challenges that are linked to global careers, whether it's you being remote or hybrid, it doesn't matter. You just need to be culturally intelligent.
Fantastic. I think this session, we should have made it like a 2-hour session, because honestly, I can't even believe how fast time has gone. But I just want to kind of connect the key points. And thank you so much for sharing those 4 pillars. And I know it ended very nicely and linked to what Uti was talking to us about adaptability, because, some of us, might just be set in our ways, but your ability to actually succeed in other environments, it's about assimilating, not necessarily going there and thinking that you will just go as you are, but if you're going to move to a global environment, then there has to be an adaptability about you, so that you can. I love that cultural intelligence. I love that. I've never really had a discussion on cultural intelligence. We talk about culture, but I mean that should be a 2024 key area that we're developing. We've moved from emotional intelligence, that cultural side. And I think if that's one thing that we take away from this, it should be one that we definitely work towards adopting. So I know, like, I looked at the questions. I feel like we've touched, the question roughly speaking. So I don't know whether anyone, I'm just trying to, the chat is so long. I was just trying to see, a lot of people were agreeing, and I was just trying to see whether, there's any questions that maybe we missed. I just want to use this opportunity to maybe, in a sense, I'm sure you would have a lot of people connecting with you. I'm sure the same way with Uti as well. And I know that I can see how much both of you are just sharing your wealth of knowledge. So please, if people go back and ask you further questions in your DMs, please open up to help them. Uti, I know you're very good with this. I know that you're a seasoned, not just a seasoned talent expert, but also a career coach. So please feel free to connect with Uti on one-on-one if you are interested in furthering that relationship, or if it's paid services that, like, I mean, she's someone who works with people as a coach. The other thing I want to just bring to our attention to is that it's something, the reason why we did this topic was because we know that people have it in their minds. Everyone is thinking global. Well, if you're not thinking and you haven't thought before now, we're global citizens. We're not, and it's something that I personally have preached for years. One of the scenarios that Uti painted is not a scenario I want to necessarily happen to us, which is wherever you go in the world, we should be free to move at par or even higher. Right? And the best way to do that is to prepare ourselves beforehand. It's today that I now understand how important, I knew it was important to experience the culture of a place. Someone was telling me last week how she got a global position, but they kept on laying emphasis on, the time she schooled in the UK, and whether she lived in the UK or whether her master's was online. And, I was just like, why did they really? Oh, you live there. Oh, they kept on asking, oh, you live there, you live there. Like, it's now that I understand that people want you to, that immersion in the culture is something that is quite important. So anywhere we can get that by exposing ourselves to multicultures in the country, you don't have to be outside. I believe that we're global now. You can work with teams remotely, but just that experience alone goes a long way. People have asked for your LinkedIn handles. I think if you just do a search on their names on LinkedIn, you will find them. I think that's the easiest way with LinkedIn. And so just to tell everybody, like, this was in preparation for our 11th HR Bootcamp Conference. In a sense, will still be giving us his insights. We'll be seeing him next week. And Uti, I know that we'll be doing more with you next year. And this is just to encourage everyone, whether if you've still not signed up, you can see what you're missing for the conference. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone. We're looking forward to sharing more. We also want to remind you, the registrations for the conference close on December 5th because we would need time to prepare. And I know that lots of people here are already registered and looking forward to our side attraction of the talent show, which happens from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. on day 2. And if you've not put in your entry, this is the time. There are lots of interesting prizes and support. We really just wanted to showcase the diversity of talent that exists in the HR space. Some people have been asking why, a talent show. If you follow the HR Bootcamp, it's all about innovation and bringing out HR people to be outside there. There's such a diversity of talents. Don't be the people that they've stereotyped us to be. Let's appreciate and let's celebrate you. And that's what we're trying to encourage. That diversity and inclusion, come and showcase it, and let's reward you for that talent. So just if there's any last notes from Innocent, I would just take a last note. We've never run out of time before, but man, this session was mind-blowing. Innocent, just give us your 1-minute closing, and then Uti, give us your 1-minute closing, and then thank you. So Innocent, your closing time.
Thanks very much, Adora, for, first of all, the opportunity. And Thanks for all who attended as well. I think as much as we can share as HR practitioners, right? We're talking about global, right? And you said something, global citizens. I think why we're all here together is because we are also behaving like global citizens by sharing knowledge, sharing experiences. And I'm sure that's all that the Kendall Bootcamp stands for. I think we should just keep being intentional as HR leaders. The trends would continue to evolve, right? And because the trends will continue to evolve, the needs of the global space will also continue to evolve. So we as HR need to move with that evolution in a very proportionate manner. I would always say, look, when the change that is outside you as a HR professional is faster than the change that is within you, then you increasingly become very irrelevant as a HR professional, and you easily become less attractive to the global space as well. So my advice is keep up with the trend, be research driven, be very, very inquisitive, be very, very curious as HR professionals, and the sky is your starting point. It's not the limit, your starting point. So thank you very much, Adora, once again. And it was great to have this discussion.
Thank you so much. I mean, there's no special handle for you because I'm seeing questions. It's your name, right, on LinkedIn?
Yes, just type my full names.
Type in his full name, Innocent Obiwanne, and then you see his lovely face pop up and you just add him and that's it. Uti, your closing words, please.
Well, there are two key trends that I see in the future, and based on all the different conferences and the different conversations I've had, there are two key trends that are going to change the world as we know it. Number one is AI, artificial intelligence, and number two is equity and equality and inclusion. Those two things, I do not perceive them going away. And if you are a HR professional, my question to you is, will you be ready? That's all I want to know. One of the things I said about myself is I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. I'm here because Adora asked me a question on WhatsApp some months ago, and then we started a conversation. Then I sent her something. Then she went, this is the conclusion, but you need to come and talk to people now. But what started was I was reading something and I had the answer to her question. And then I backed it up with my research. And that triggered her saying, you need to come and talk to people. My question to you is, what problem are you solving? What problem are you intentionally going out of your way to solve and becoming an expert in? Because I will not pay you for occupying a seat. I will pay you if you can solve my problem.
Fantastic. I'll just add one more. I know it kind of falls under the AI, but analytics. I don't think any future HR team will not have an analytics person in it. Because data-driven decisions, I was speaking to a CEO, an IT company, and I've spoken to about 3 CEOs of HR software companies, and we're like, please, what's the analytics component? Every HR team would need an analytics person. I mean, you should already have one, but if not, like, if you look on jobs, one of the things I also do just to check my credentials and make sure that I'm abreast, I look at jobs. I just always randomly check jobs out of the country just to see the skill sets. There are lots of analytics jobs right now, people analytics, because it's all about data-driven decisions. And I want to know that once a skill is in demand, right, there will always be people searching for it. So I believe if you have strong analytic skills, and it's not your ability to know math, that's why a lot of people run away from it. Analytics means that there's already software. There's no analytics without data, and and data analytics is about software. So it's not even your understanding of being a programmer. Nuance and being able to make data-driven decisions. You need to know Excel. No, you don't. But you need to know how to use software, and that software will you can filter it or throw it up to run reports for you, but you should be able to tell a story with data, because a lot of people, when they see data, they don't know what the story the data is telling. So the thing is it's your problem solving ability. Of course, using it, having working knowledge of a software tool is good, but what can you even do with it? A big thank you to everyone who made our time. I think this is like probably, I mean, we have almost like 200 people on the call. You know, I don't think we've ever had this number of people on the call at this even for, and I know that many more people will watch the replay because some people still cannot make it. Like I said, the registrations were almost 500 people registered to join. So a lot of people are waiting for us to send the link. And then, of course, they will watch the video in their own time. So thank you very much again, Innocent. Thank you so much, Uti. Thank you to everyone, and looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time on the 12th to 13th of December. Take care. Thank you. Bye, Innocent.
Thank you very much, Adora.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone. And please put your chats. Let's be reading what we couldn't read.